Hello, and welcome to the wrap-up show for the Liberty Cup 2020 tournament. I am Brandon Fogel, and I am joined by the tournament director, Bill Hackenbracht. Bill, welcome to the show.
Brandon, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me back on. Liberty Cup 2020 was an amazing but exhausting experience.
Tell us, so the final board count was 19. How many players did that amount to?
So we had 81 players, three of whom were either GMs or the tournament director, myself. So for 78 total players playing for points, and it was amazing. And it was so nice to see the community come together on Discord and really get to know each other. There was plenty of banter and dialogue before the games, after the games, and even within the last few days. And it was also wonderful to see the community come together to support an organization in the Philadelphia area that I asked people to consider.
Yeah, can you tell us a bit more about the Amistad Law Project?
Sure. The Amistad Law Project is it's an organization committed and dedicated to ending industrial incarceration, or the industrial prison complex, and kind of reinvest that money towards community-based programming to minimize the effects of poverty and decrease the root causes of criminality.
And how much
all in all,
all
in all, the final tally was $1,500 that the community came together and raised. It was really something else. And I know that the folks at the Amistad Law Project will appreciate it, and I really appreciate it too. It's amazing and wonderful to see a group come together and really accomplish something. But we also played some amazing diplomacy, which is, I know, why most of the people have tuned in to watch.
Yeah, it's worth taking a moment, right, for a community like this to acknowledge the privilege that enables us to take this amount of time and devote it to a recreational activity, right? And this donation is a small drop in the bucket of what's needed for good causes like this, but it's an important contribution, and I'm glad that the community was able to do something substantial. And let us take a look at the top 7, how they finished. So in first place was Tommy Anderson. And this was using Carnage scoring, we should add. That's why the numbers are as large as they are. Second place was Natty Schaefer, who also won. It came in second for the best name competition, I should say. Number 3 was John Anderson, former independent presidential candidate. Fourth place, Nicolas Sahuguet, former world champ. Fifth place, Craig Mayer, who is a tournament director himself, plays out of Montana. Stephen Hogue is a new entrant into the hobby. We've talked about him a bunch of times. He's made a big splash and made the top board here. Congrats to Stephen. And Matthew Krill, I actually don't know anything about. Are you familiar with him?
I think he's a West Coast player. I know that Siobhan mentioned he has played in, I think, the Pacific Northwest area. But yeah, Natty Schaefer and Stephen Hogue were the two newcomers who cracked into the top 7. And hey, Tommy Anderson's no old hand either. I think this was his 5th or 6th tournament.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to gloss over Tommy Anderson. We have him waiting in the studio, so we're going to interview him shortly. So yeah, and this is Tommy's first tournament win, and he's been playing face to face for a couple of years now. Has only been to 4 or 5 tournaments, he said, but he plays online. He's good friends with lots of people who are in the face to face community, so he's a familiar face, or a familiar name, I should say. This is the first time I've actually met him before. All right, let's have a look at the best country awards. In Austria, we have Zach Moore, DBN's own Zach Moore. He's the principal editor on the project. In England, we have John Anderson. France was also the tournament's naming champion, Morgante Pell. Fantastic name. Germany, Maxim Popov, who has now won a best country at each of the 3 virtual face-to-face tournaments that have been held. Italy is Chicago's own Christian Klein, tied with Peter Cook. Russia is another weasel, Iber Kondrel, and Turkey is Tommy Anderson, who we mentioned and we'll get to meet very shortly.
Yeah, and Tommy pulled off, out of 19 boards and 81 players, Tommy was the only player to get 2 board tops, solo board tops in the tournament. And that, I think that really, I'm glad he won a best country, because that really allows us to highlight what he accomplished again.
All right. And then there were a couple specialty awards. The first one was Player's Choice, won by Mehmet Alpaslan. Can you say a little bit about how he won that?
By popular acclaim. I solicited and received nominations from all of the participants, and Mehmet's name kept coming up. The folks that were talking about him were longtime tournament players who I've known for years, and they were very impressed at the way he conducted himself when things were going his way, and the way he conducted himself when things weren't going his way. And I think even though he's a new player, that really demonstrated the best in a diplomacy player. The ability to handle all situations with grace. And I'm glad we were able to recognize someone like that, especially a new player. That's pretty awesome.
And we actually will be interviewing Mehmet Alpaslan on the show after we interview Tommy. He's joined by Seren and Kwok. They had a really interesting second round game that we wanted to hear about.
I'll be honest with you, Mehmet's a really humble player, and I'll be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if the fact that he won the Player's Choice Award never even comes up.
It doesn't, actually. He and he attributes everything good that he did to Seren. So that actually fits really well with your description of him. All right. Golden Blade winner was Chicago's own Eber Condrel. He's a high school player. And can you say a bit about what won him the Golden Blade?
Sure. I mean, traditionally a Golden Blade's given to the person with the best stab or the most audacious and aggressive move that pays off. Eber's game where he played Russia was just filled with those kinds of moves and well-timed aggression. And for example, at one point, he had a German army owning Warsaw and a English fleet owning St. Petersburg. And he was able to turn that into a board top and a best country award. And he did that through well-timed aggression. I think he turned on Austria at just the right time, taking all of his dots. It was a well-played game, Eber.
Congrats, Eber, on the Golden Blade. Congrats to Mehmet Alpaslan on the Player's Choice. Now, let us bring on the tournament champion, Tommy Anderson. Tommy, welcome to the stream.
Thanks for having me.
And congratulations on your tournament win. Tell us how it felt.
It was kind of surprising. It was nice. So I've played a lot of, been pretty active in the online community, a lot of Gunboat games and the Gunboat tournaments that you've been organizing, Brandon. And I've played a few non-virtual face-to-face games. I've only been playing for a couple of years now. I'm from the Boston area, so I've played in the Boston Massacre, obviously, a couple of times, and traveled for the WDC in DC 2018 and get the exact name, the one in Seattle last year. And I've pretty much just been kind of middle of the pack, never board topped, never had best country. And sort of my goal kind of going into this in the past two virtual tournaments, DixieCon and the virtual Boston Massacre, just to get at least something in that just to continue to try to improve my play. And so even just like that very first game, like it felt like it went well, and it was my first time getting a board top. I was like, if this is all I get this tournament, it was also a great game too. The first match, I'm sure we'll talk about it. Like in terms of just the players that I played with, I think it was just one of the most enjoyable games I've had in terms of, when things are going bad or good in terms of like stabbing or whatnot. No one was very sort of aggressive or opinionated. It was just a very cordial back and forth, just going by the strategy and just good old fashioned diplomacy. And I was just happy with that. And also the second game, the second match, obviously playing to win, like I'm trying to do the best that I can and keep trying to improve. So it was just nice to actually like have a good finish. But when I saw the scores at the end that I had actually like ended up winning, I was kind of shocked. Like I was just looking at like the score online. I was like what just happened?
So even after you topped the board, you still weren't you still weren't thinking that you had won the tournament.
Yeah, because I didn't know if someone had soloed or if maybe someone I knew that I think in the top three, there was three tops in the first round. So maybe someone had one more or two more dots than me. And I was just kind of like, just want a strong finish. I've enjoyed playing both games. And I was like, let's take a look at the scores. And oh, okay, cool.
So I wasn't calling your game in the second round, and I was in the kitchen listening to. I was making myself some food, and I had the commentators on, and I heard them call your name because you take the lead fairly late, I think, in your second round game, and they said that you had taken the lead, and I kind of was like, what?
Yeah. Sorry. That's it.
Well, I went over and I texted Siobhan, did Tommy just win this tournament? She's like, I think so.
That's what was kind of my thought too. I'm just, because what ended up happening was I was expecting maybe like second or so, and I figured maybe that'd still be like top 3 or top 5 or whatnot. And I formed a really strong, I mean, I guess talk about the game. But I formed a really strong alliance with Corey early on, and she was GMing, I think for that particular game as well. And she was in a very good position to just keep going, and she could potentially kind of just maintain that lead. And I just kept, one domino fell in I was playing England, one domino fell in Russia, then I was able to go for Germany. And the funny thing is a lot of players, I think it was Austria in particular, he was top at that point with 9 centers. I think I had 7, Corey had 8 or something, and they kept wanting to draw. And I know we kind of talked about this before, how like I had this voice in the back of my head from previous tournaments where like,
well, pause that thought. So, talking to Siobhan about this for me was particularly poignant because I remembered this moment from the previous tournament, from the Boston Massacre, where we had given you some grief. So I have known you only for a few months from our online the online community that the face-to-face people have organized, and you've always come across as a genial presence, somebody who hasn't been interested in really going for it. Someone who likes to form alliances and sort of go along with the game, and it's kind of maybe a little bit happy to be there, right? Like just happy to be there.
Yeah.
Right. So, and I think Siobhan had a similar impression of you. And so there's this moment in this game from Boston Massacre where you have an opportunity to really go for it and to make a strong move for the board top. You'd have to stab people that you've been working with, and you pass it up. And so here was our reaction. And this becomes relevant for you guys watching. This becomes relevant actually during Tommy's second round game, or first round game, I think, and also in his head for the second round game. So here is the clip. Oh Jesus! I could have
walked in from Portugal with no support.
Oh dear.
Oh, Tommy, I see you in the comments. Don't wink at me. No.
I mean, look, Tommy.
There's a point, I think, in people's diplomacy evolution where they start to say, why not me? And this is harder for some players than others. I think some players are sort of naturally think that they are deserving or entitled to win top boards and win tournaments, but not all of them do, and some of them have to sort of come into that. And I think this is a moment where Tommy could have said, why not me? Why not me? Why aren't I the one who gets the dots this time?
Yeah, I mean, not to gratuitously quote Hamilton, but don't throw away your shot.
That was exactly the voice in my head, like just that whole conversation. And the second match where they kept wanting to beat, like Austria in particular wanted to do a draw, and I'm just like, you know what? No, I'm gonna I can do some movement here in the north. But here's the thing: is though, when I said to them, I was trying to explain like I didn't want both Germany and Russia to get concerned that I'm going to try and like move against one of them. So then right after I said, I'm like, guys, I think there's a little more play. I tried to phrase it neutrally, like, I have a good shot at maybe placing in the top for the tournament. Like, can we play a little bit more? And so then I pulled Germany aside, try to be like, hey, don't worry. I'm just going to go for Russia. Like, I'd love to work with you against Russia. I did the same thing with Russia, then stabbed Russia. And then a little later got in position against Germany and took some dots off of him. And then, but what I was really surprised about both games is, and I think they talked about a lot in the commentary too, is, especially Doug was talking about it, how I was surprised I was able to draw so easily for both games, in the sense that there was a lot of play left for both, especially in that second game with Corey. Like when I spoke with her, she had kind of mentioned, she's like, I'm GMing. I can't. My points don't necessarily count towards the standings. I'd be happy to give you the top, but like you never know. Like I still got to be defensive because she may still want to try and go for the top. I still got to try to be careful with that. So I think I ended up putting like a fleet in London, which was like because she had all of her fleets in the Med, and I was at that point she like immediately wanted to draw.
But so Tommy, was there a point where you said to yourself, "It's my turn"?
Yeah, definitely. There was definitely, I think, more so like that second match where I like they kept wanting the veto, and I was like, no, I see a path forward for me to at least get maybe second or first, and I was like, I'm just gonna go for it.
Okay.
But I didn't want to scare them. Yeah.
Okay, but you were saying to yourself, "Why not me?"
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, great. Let's turn to your
Tommy. This time it was you, and fantastic job.
Oh, thank you.
I'm having connectivity issues. Just wanted to relay my congratulations to you again, and on behalf of the Liberty Cup team, congratulations on taking home a well-earned and well-deserved championship.
Well, thank you, and thanks for organizing it too. It was a very like seamless tourney, and it was just such a pleasure to play.
Bill, thanks for joining us, man. Have a great night.
See you.
All right, man. Let us turn to your game. Shall we?
Nice.
All right. Here is your first round game. This is how things opened up. You are playing Turkey, and in Russia is Philip Peterson. In Austria is Daniel Ogorchuk, and in Italy is Wes Ketchum. Had you played or met any of these people before?
I played with. I believe the only one I played with before is Wes. Actually, I mean, it's funny is because that's the game we were just looking at where you were saying it could be you this time. He was Italy in that one as well, and. Okay. At some point in this, he parrots that against my ear, which is you'll see why it's funny later on.
Oh, that's why he knew the clip because he was in the game, so he paid more attention to it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just realized that.
Okay, so and then in Germany you have Doc Binder, and England's Mehmet Alpaslan, who ends up winning the Players' Choice Award. France is Calvin Coolbury, and these guys, had you met or heard of any of them before?
I had played with Doc before, I think, in one face-to-face, but the others I haven't.
Okay, so it looks like things open up relatively straightforward in the East,
right?
And then things don't remain straightforward very quickly. So 1902 is when things get interesting. You decide to turn on Russia.
Yeah.
Was this a clear turning on Russia here, or was he expecting you to support him into Serbia and then you betrayed him? What was going on here exactly?
I believe he was, and I think the reason why I did it was I was getting I had played with West before, and I knew he seemed like he could be kind of wily, and I thought maybe he'd be kind of moving towards me, and I thought maybe it would be good to try and help Austria a little bit. I forget our exact conversation. And I figured maybe if I can get into black, I kind of tried to convince him that I wasn't going to go to black, and somehow that managed to work out. But I forget the exact dynamics, what I promised Austria here, other than cutting Romania.
Okay. So Austria supports Italy into Aegean, right? This is a classic way for an AI to work. But then things turn around remarkably in the fall, rather. At least they appear to, from my perspective, right? So Austria supports you into Romania,
right?
It's actually Russia has suboptimal moves here. Had Russia supported Romania with both Sevastopol and Galicia, they would have held it. But you guys get away with it. This was planned in concert with Italy, I assume.
That was all the more where I started to get a little worried, where I was like, okay, now I think I've been misled, and I think they're both going to just try to plow into me. Oh wait, what am I saying? Sorry, no. Oh, because he walked into Greece. That's right. Yes, yeah, no, that was planned. Sorry, yeah, no, for sure, yeah.
Okay, and then in 1903 is when the this AIT, this like Frankenstein beast of an alliance that is incredibly unusual. This is very, very unusual alliance. I mean, there's a couple different ways to do an Eastern triple. It's not as easy to work out tactically as the Western triple is, although that has more problems than people like to acknowledge.
Right.
But of the ways to do an Eastern triple, and AIT, you just rarely ever see it because Italy and Turkey have such a hard time having some productive cooperation together. But you guys did it, right?
Yeah, it worked out.
How did you do it? How did you get Wes on board? and Daniel as well.
I think I'm trying to remember if from my conversations with Germany, I kind of got the hint that he was going to move east, and I think I tried to relay that to Italy. And I think Austria at that point didn't necessarily want to support Italy into Con at all. Like he wanted to just kind of hold and maybe help me move towards the north. I was really pleased to see a GN move away. And like I remember, I think talking with Wes quite a bit here, also trying to just really influence him to try to go in that direction, especially since we were able to kind of move around last season.
How much do you think your prior interaction with Wes was a factor here?
That's a good question. I was kind of wondering that too, because, well, that last game too, when I had that chance to do the stabbing, where like I could have went for like those multiple dots all at once. His was one of them. Like, and I tried to like forge like a good alliance with him, and I think maybe not having like actually went out flat out stabbing him may have helped me a little bit, gave me a little more credit or a little what do you call it?
Credibility. Yeah.
Credibility. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think that definitely, I guess my passiveness paid off for once.
Your past passiveness paid off.
Yeah, exactly.
For future non-passiveness.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so in this case, I mean, there's no stabbing that happens here at this moment. But then in 1904, it looks like this is when things get a little bit weird. So talk us through what happened with Bulgaria here. You support yourself with Italy's help into Bulgaria. Austria pulls the fleet rather than retreating to Caen, which makes it look like it's prearranged.
Right.
Was it prearranged?
Say that last part again. Sorry.
This looks prearranged since Austria did not retreat to an open Constantinople. Was this a stab or was this prearranged?
That was prearranged. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. And then what was it here? Right. And I was supporting him more, so he got me into Moscow. Actually, you know what? No, I don't think that was prearranged. I was actually surprised that he didn't retreat. If I remember, actually, I can't remember for sure.
Okay, that's all right. Well, so what's interesting is that Austria. It's a weird trade for Austria to make in the sense that it significantly weakens him. You get two builds here,
right?
He gets a rebuild, not an actual build, and you plop down two armies.
So yeah, that was kind of arranged with Italy in the sense that I didn't really want to threaten him in the Med, and I guess I think from what I did from here, I think I did, was it like Caen to Sèvres or something?
Yeah, you convoy to Sèvres and try to move to Bulgaria, but Austria's moves here are still friendly to you. Austria moves everything west. Was Austria worried? Like, did he mention that? Did he point out the fact that you'd built two armies and that these could really only go against him?
He actually did it. I think he may have started to, and I said, well, don't worry so much. I'm just getting positioned to go against England in the north, like Livonia, Moscow. When I can't remember if I went for St. Pete or Warsaw after. I think I went for St. Pete after this. I can't remember.
Yeah, you take Warsaw.
Oh, Warsaw. Yeah, that makes sense because he can support St. Pete. Yeah. So I guess he just kind of expected me to try to go north, but I knew I couldn't really necessarily take St. Pete.
Okay, so this was just good diplomacy on your part then. Daniel was willing to believe the lie, and you offered up a pretty good one.
And I was happy to work with Italy at this point because he's moving in that direction and he's not near me. And I was like, well, I might as well try to, I'm not sure if he realized he must not have realized that I couldn't take St. Pete, or maybe he thought, I think maybe I tried to convince him that Doc was on my side about hitting Norway or something.
Which happens soon enough. So.
Yeah.
But this is a fantastic position for Turkey to be in. You're sitting in the Aegean. I mean, West should probably have been demanding that you retreat to Smyrna here. This is probably an experience mistake on his part.
And I don't think I got to talk to him too much about what I was doing with the GN too, because I know he was very busy talking with, I think, Germany and France this whole time. Yeah,
it's one of the nice things about Turkey, right? Is that other people usually have much more diplomatic work to do. So you put down another two armies.
Right.
And at this point, you must be thinking like it's kind of full on. But then there's a setback, right? This is the speed bump that you hit. Germany supports Austria into Marseille while also taking Trieste with support from Italy. So this is a place where things just get weird. And
what's that? Sorry.
And Doc Binder's play becomes really important for you.
And so he was one of the first people I talked to after this. And he's basically like, look, like, I'm not going to let you keep advance anymore. I'm going to keep supporting Warsaw. I'm going to support him in Serbia or something like that, I think. He's just like, he's like, you know, what did he say? He's like, and then eventually he's like, well, I can get you into Norway, I think, or no, what was it? Get you into St. Petersburg. Yeah. And he's like, you know, let's see if we can work with each other. But basically, you're not going to make any more progress against Austria because I'm just going to keep supporting him.
And how did you respond to that?
I think what did I say? I said, like, you know, I understand that. Hopefully we can find some way to work together. Like, I know you kind of have your hands full in the West also too. Like, I know I think I tried to play off as like, there's really not much I can do if you're going to be supporting him. Like, I'm not going to really move in much more, you know. And then I think right after that, Austria came to me and said, once I think he talked to Germany after I talked to him, and then said, can we just work together? Like, I'm kind of annoyed with Italy and then Germany coming in the Trieste.
So it's an interesting response, right? Because he's coming to you and he's saying, I'm going to make sure you don't top this board. And your response is, well, okay, I sort of get it. You know, you just want to be nice, right? It's a diplomatic approach, and it ends up paying dividends for you because I believe it's right here, Doc Binder, while he does support Austria and Warsaw and Serbia, he taps Norway for you, which enables you to take St. Petersburg. From my mind, this is actually the key thing. Like, if you don't get this, you are largely stymied, actually. So whether he thought his intention was to stymie you or not, his need for England to be pushed back actually superseded that and ultimately worked out to your benefit.
And that's why I was trying to explain to him, like, I don't care if you protect Austria, like, I'm willing to help you against England. He's like, all right, cool.
That's great. That's great diplomacy. I mean, that tops you this board, is that exact attitude. You know, some people may have gotten mad at Doc in that situation, or just may have sulked. But you kept the line of communication open, and you found something that you guys could do together that appeared to benefit both of you, but ultimately benefited you more. That's perfect play in the game of diplomacy. So then, so then it seems to me. So then you turn on Wes at this moment. And how is this? When was it that Wes came to you and said and quoted that previous analysis back to you?
It was somewhere around here, I think. Well, it may not have been. I think it was a bit earlier because at this point he wanted to. He got to a point where I think he was maybe 9 or something. I can't remember, where he wanted to draw, or he wanted to keep playing it through. Then he eventually ends up like dropping down to 7 at some point. So I feel what was it? Sorry.
I don't think he gets to 9.
Okay, he was just 8. Okay, yeah, and there's the 7. Yeah. I think he said a little earlier on when he was trying to convince me to move against Austria.
Okay, so way earlier in the game.
Yeah, it's a bit early. Yeah.
So Wes comes to you and he quotes this. He says, "When are you going to take your shot?"
Because he was basically like, "Well, I'm moving towards the west, and you're surrounding Austria. Like, try to get him to think you're going against England and St. Petersburg, and then just go for Warsaw." I was like, yeah, no, that sounds like a good idea.
Okay, so that was right after you built the 2 armies the first time.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Then he kind of like trusted me too, because I said I wasn't going to build a fleet, and I didn't.
Okay, so that was the critical part of your IT alliance, actually.
Yeah.
Was that negotiation? Great. Okay, so then you built another. You built another fleet. You've taken Greece. Just bouncing around here. The rest, I think, don't you get one crucial?
I start to do kind of weird things here when I look back. I'm like, I started to think I was being kind of clever and trying to surround Austria, and I just made some weird moves. But luckily, it ended up they all wanted to draw. Well,
you take Norway. This is what happens. You get Norway because there's just bad blood in the West all around.
Yeah.
And it looks like Wes gets into the Irish Sea.
Yeah.
He ends up taking Liverpool, which is, a dot, but it also pulls him further out of position.
Right.
And meanwhile, you're just collecting really nice position. Oh, one interesting thing that does happen here is that you leave Moscow open. So here you've got Austria back on side. So this is the last key for you, is to get Austria to help you finish out the board top.
And I didn't expect that would work out.
How did you do that? I mean, it's a diplomatic coup, right? It's a diplomatic victory. This is someone that you stabbed, you fought him, and now he's helping you. So how did you do that?
I think he was the thing is we were getting close to, I think it was around 5 o'clock, and people were starting to get kind of like, what's the word, antsy, wanted to like get ready for the next round, and he was happy with the fact that I like eventually did end up working with him, even though I kind of stabbed like got a couple dots off of him. At this point, he just wanted to make sure that I tried to keep him locked in there so he didn't lose any more dots. And he was just willing to. I just kind of had to go out on a limb, the fact that he wasn't going to go to Moscow, and I guess by him getting me into Galicia, he felt it would maybe help him a little bit more, like support wise.
It's a safer position actually if he knows that he can retreat to Moscow.
Right.
So okay, but Doc, you know, there's a dot
Right.
left here, so everyone's just like, okay, fine, Tommy, you win.
That was I was like, all right, well, I'll take it. That's why I feel like watching the commentary was interesting, because like I agreed. I'm like, yeah, I feel like there's a bit more play here. Like Doc could have potentially like topped it.
It's tough though, Doc. With Austria helping you, Doc probably can't do it. Right. So whatever he gains up here, he's going to lose down here.
Right.
So. Okay. Well, so that was your first round game. You took your shot.
Why not?
And you won. What does this portend for the future for you for diplomacy?
I'm just excited to keep playing. I mean, this was kind of a turning point for me in the sense that I've been kind of frustrated where I've just been middle of the pack. We had I felt like I've done like decent tactics in certain games, like face to face, or especially like I've done a lot better on Gunboat than I have face to face. And I think I kind of mentioned to you earlier, like one of the things that I've really taken away from these back-to-back virtual face-to-face tournaments is learning to communicate more and try to get a pulse on what everyone's thinking. And I think I improved a lot, both with like my tactic standpoint as well as just the diplomacy aspect, and knowing when to only like stab at the appropriate moments, and like when there's more for me to gain than there is for me to lose. And I just want to try to keep my main thing is now I'm trying to really spend more time doubling down, trying to really analyze my games, not just play like passively, having for fun, and just like you said, just being happy to be part of the game, trying to actually like study it more and figure out, you know, how can I continue to just do well consistently going forward. And obviously you're not going to win all, or like, you know, you're going to have bad tournaments, but this was just, it was gratifying for me and surprising too in certain ways, but it was gratifying just to actually finally, like after playing for a couple of years, actually have like a good result. Are you, do you write after action reports where you analyze your play and what you could have seen or done differently? So that's one of the things I love about the commentaries. It's actually got me more into doing that. Not necessarily like actively like writing down and like looking at the tactics, more so like kind of talking out loud in my head and like getting the different opinions of the commentators. And I think I should definitely move more towards that, looking at just like I've gotten way better at knowing like different openings and figuring out like early dynamics. This was the first time where I actually like did good late game, because I've always been hesitant to not being confident with knowing what the bigger picture could lead to, and being very hesitant to stab because I don't necessarily feel confident enough to navigate like in the direction where it could potentially get me a top. So that's kind of, I need to really focus more, I think, on my end game. That's like sort of my next pivot point. So you think your hesitancy to stab in earlier games was more to do with lack of confidence about what to do next, rather than just like being too nice? Yeah, exactly. And yeah, like maybe I default to being like passive and nice because I wasn't confident enough to be like, well, I don't really know how, if I were to do this stab, I don't really know what I could do from there, or didn't have the confidence, even though I could maybe see a pathway. But now this, I think, really helped let me see that a little more going forward. People with a natural sense of entitlement, they actually don't worry about that. Yeah, exactly. They just assume it'll work out. They'll figure it out. Tommy, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you again soon. Yeah, thanks for having me. And it's thanks for doing the work you do for the Diplomacy Broadcast Network. It's been a real asset for me, improving my play, and it was a fun tournament. Great. All right. Have a good night. Okay, joining me now is Seren Kwok from the United Kingdom. Welcome, Seren.
Thanks, Brandon.
Seren, so before we get into your games from the weekend, can you first tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what you got you into diplomacy, what you do?
I'm originally, I guess I'm Seren, like that's the name that I go by in diplomacy. I'm originally from Hong Kong, but I've lived in England for the past 5 years, and I'm currently an undergrad studying politics and economics. I started playing diplomacy during the lockdown just a little bit over 2 months ago. So I started on Backstabber, and lately I have been speed voting a lot, and that's the majority of what I play now.
Well, so how did you first come into contact with diplomacy? Like, what was it that, how did you first find out about it?
I played like the Game of Thrones board game back when I was like 12 or 13. And then like I did a bit of digging and realized like diplomacy was like, you know, the original and the frankly better version. But I didn't actually go back to diplomacy until like just on a whim during lockdown when I was looking for something to do.
So you just needed some time to kill.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you're clearly hooked, right? We had you on a broadcast about a month ago for the Nexus virtual face-to-face game, and now you've played your first tournament. What is it about the game that really captures you?
I don't know, honestly. Like, I just know that I am definitely addicted, as you've said. Like, I think it helps that I feel like I've gotten along really well with like a lot of people I met through diplomacy, and like the community has been very welcoming. I remember like when I first joined, I first joined like the Nexus Discord channel, and like I messaged Marcus, Captain Meme on there, who then like got me in touch with Tanya, who got me in touch with like a whole bunch of other people. And so now like it was just sort of nice getting to talk to everyone, including like top players who would just like come and like give me advice. Like Robert Kentamo, who I played with in my second game, a lot to say about his play there, was one of the first people who like gave me advice on WebEx. So like it was really nice just sort of like knowing everyone.
That's great. All right. So before we jump into your games, then just give me a brief overview of your tournament experience. How did it feel to play in a sort of higher pressure, higher stakes environment?
Yeah, it was loads and loads of fun. Like I had that experience from previously playing 2 separate virtual face-to-face games. So like I knew going in that like I'd have to watch the clock a lot more and like be a lot sharper with my tactics, and like, you know, just playing on that like short time frame. It doesn't feel like 15 minutes, it feels like 5. So I was like sort of mentally a lot more prepared for that than I had been in my first games. And I think that contributed to like the small measure of successes that I was able to get.
Okay, and then real quick, you said you're studying politics and economics. Is that right? Have you found yet any overlap between your diplomacy experience and your academic studies?
I'm afraid not. I wish I could say that diplomacy is helpful for life and everything, but I think it's just making me waste my time.
Well, I can tell you that most of the people I know who've gotten really into diplomacy feel like they've learned something about themselves, about how they interact with people, and certainly about how to handle conflict. So I hope that for you as well, if you continue with the sport, and I hope you do, because from all indications are you have a lot of natural talent for this. So with that, let us go and see some of that in action. All right, let's turn to your second round game, and to do that, we're going to bring into the stream Mehmet Alpaslan, who was Austria on your board. Welcome, Mehmet.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Mehmet, you're coming to us from New York City, is that right?
That's right, in the midst of the last remnants of Hurricane Isaiah.
Oh, is that right? It's up there already. Oh, it looks relatively sunny. Mehmet, tell us a bit about yourself, how you got into diplomacy, what you do for work.
So yeah, I'm a recently lapsed academic. I used to be an astrophysicist. I worked at NASA for a few years, then at NYU, and I recently joined a startup to do AI and machine learning work. I got into diplomacy. You know, I was just thinking about that a moment ago, and I'm not exactly sure how I got into it, but I remember playing Risk and thinking, gosh, I really hate the element of chance in this game. And so then diplomacy was a natural consequence of that. And I like talking. I'm quite an extroverted person, quite expressive. And so that aspect of diplomacy really spoke to me. And I've been playing, gosh, on and off since 2013, although I was looking at my numbers the other night, and I have played fewer games in total during that time than Seren has played on Backstabber since she got started, which I think explains a lot about our dynamics in that second game.
Where have you normally done most of your playing?
Web diplomacy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So mostly extended deadline games where you get a day or two to enter your order?
Absolutely. Yeah, I tend to go for 24-hour long games. I have never played a single game of Gunboat in my life because I can't talk to anybody.
Got it. It's the social aspect that you really like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, so how did you find the immediate interaction of this virtual face-to-face format?
You know, it was challenging. I enjoyed the discussion aspect of it, but I'm to lay all my cards on the table here. I'm very much a people pleaser, and that can be challenging in diplomacy. So very often I found myself telling people explicitly that I wasn't going to lie to them and that I was not going to help them in doing whatever they wanted me to do. So I was quite frank in a lot of discussions, which I'm sure does not make for it reduces my chances of being successful, but that's the way that I felt most comfortable playing.
You can't lie too much in this game. If you do, then you quickly won't succeed. On the other hand, keeping some cards close to your chest will definitely pay off. Did you tell anybody that you would back into their supply centers merely by being dislodged from another location?
No, that was how do I put this? That was Backstabber's options of places to retreat into that helped me out there. I really want to say, anything remotely clever or astute that Austria did in that second game was Seren's idea. I really have to give credit where credit is due. I mean, that was just such a marvelous way to experience the game.
All right, let's dive right into it, because there are things about this game that will really interest a lot of people who are going to be watching this. So here is the board, and this board is quite a thing to behold. We've got first of all, the name that stands out really quickly anytime it's on a board is Andrew Goff, who is widely recognized as one of the best players in the world right now. He's won, I think, 3 world championships, and we've called him on, I think, 4 boards or so since we started doing these broadcasts, and he's topped every single one. That's all. You all, whenever you see Andrew Goff's name on the board, your eye is automatically drawn to it. Robert Cantelmo is a good player who has been away from the face-to-face hobby for a while. He's recently come back to it. Tim Richardson has been playing for a long time, a very solid player. John Anderson is not someone that anyone from the face-to-face community has met before, but we've seen him show up in these tournaments now, and he's done very well. And he had topped his first round board as well. So, and Seren came in having topped a joint top with her first round board. So, Mehmet, did you know anything about any of these players coming in?
I knew Tim Richardson's name just because I had been on the website. Other than that, no. I understood that Andrew Goff had some renown within the community just based on people's interactions with him during things like the roll call. But other than that, absolutely not, no. And
Seren, what did you know about these other players coming in?
I knew Andrew Goff was a 3-time world champion. I knew Ben Kelman was new. I knew Robert Cantelmo. Like, obviously we had spoken, and like we chatted a bit before, and like he's always friendly. And like I played one gunboat before where like he absolutely destroyed me. I later found out that was his first game of diplomacy in 5 years. So yeah.
Okay, so tell us about spring 1901 negotiations. Start with you, Seren.
I wanted to open Black and Armenia. I wanted to just go straight at Russia from the start, but like, and I wanted Budapest to open to Romania so that we could keep him out of there. Like, if I could have had everything ideal, that's what I would have done. But like, Mehmet wanted to get his builds, which is totally fair. So then I had to be slightly concerned about a Lepanto, just because that's what I've been seeing a lot. So I asked Andrew Goff for this opening so that I could get the fleet out without having to give up Black. This is something I'd learned from like Riaz Varani, like one of the face-to-face players. And this is like his opening, so I sort of borrowed it from him.
And Andrew was perfectly fine with it?
Yeah, he was like, oh, it's interesting. Like, he said that people rarely ask him to bounce in Armenia, but I think he was intrigued, so he was like, I'll go for it.
Excellent. And Mehmet, how did it go for you?
Well, Seren approached me at the very beginning of the game and proposed an alliance. I accepted because it seemed like a good idea. And then very quickly after that, just listening to her talk about the game, I realized, yep, all right, I'm definitely hitching my horse to this wagon. And I think we did discuss the opening to Romania early, but I'm, as you can probably tell, as you look through the board, a pretty cautious player. And so I thought that a bounce in Galicia might go better. And I wanted to make sure that I would get the builds. So I wanted to head down to Serbia and Greece first.
How were your negotiations with Andrew Goff? I mean, it sounds like you chose Seren over Andrew. So what was it about that?
She just approached me first, and Andrew and I didn't really talk at the very beginning of the game.
Oh.
However, we did start negotiating afterwards, and we had a pretty friendly relationship after that. And I could perhaps elaborate that in the next few turns as well.
Okay. So All right, so Seren, you were going for the big gorilla right away. Is that it? Sounds right. You just said, okay, he's the strongest player around here. I want to take him out right away. Is that fair?
That combined with the fact that AT is, amazing for Turkey, combined with the fact that like another player that I was friendly with had told me that Mehmet was a guy to work with. Like,
I see.
in favor of this.
Can you say who that was?
Wes Ketchum.
Okay. So Wes, Mehmet, did you and Wes work together on the first round board?
We were on the first round board. We worked together insofar as Wes outsmarted me on many, many occasions. But I was very beleaguered during that first board because I went into it not knowing who Doc Binder was.
Okay.
I found out who Doc Binder was after backstabbing him very poorly.
Okay.
So it was delightful. He and I had some great conversations too. So, I was just, at the end of that match, I was, happy to listen to other people.
Wes is a fairly new player. He plays in Chicago, so I know him pretty well. And he just started like in January or February, and he's number one in our league standings, and he's made he's come a long way very, very quickly. Also a physicist, by the way. He works.
We actually we have some friends in common.
Okay, excellent. Yeah. Okay, let's move ahead here. Fall of 1901. Seren, you decide to go to black here. What was the thinking here, and why did you follow Smyrna Khan rather than go to Armenia?
So I went to black because Andrew Goff told me he wasn't going to black. So I was like, either he's lying, in which case I need to bounce him, or he's not lying and I can get black. So I went to black. I was still considering juggernauting at that time. That's why I moved to Khan. But I wanted a juggernaut with favorable terms to me where I was allowed to be in black.
Got it. Okay, then let's, and Mehmet, you had a little concern about covering Trieste. You managed to DMZ Galicia though here.
That's right. Although I don't remember explicitly discussing that with Goff. The move to Trieste there was actually based on the idea that John and I wanted to, be able to cover those two centers together.
Got it. Yeah, it's interesting. This is a moment where you can see a bit of loss of efficiency in the AT. Right, like if you're going to go with a full AT from the beginning, these are not the moves you want. You definitely want to go to Galicia, and you definitely want to go to Armenia, but you need a compliant Italy to be able to do that. Okay, and then so spring 1902 is when you guys sort of reach your apex. Things go really well. We have the clever convoy over to Armenia, so you're able to rectify that positioning. You guys get into Romania, and then you have a plan here, which is, it's very clear. The plan is to make sure that Seren gets a build, that you both get builds here. Because there are other move sets that you could have done here that would have not guaranteed Seren a build. And actually, this did guarantee it. I'm sorry. Did you guys consider other move sets like Galicia going to Warsaw, or did it have to be this?
My thinking was that I wanted to guarantee Sevastopol, and this was the only way to guarantee Sevastopol. But in retrospect, we should probably have sent Galicia to Warsaw because I didn't have the strategic vision to see that Germany was going to be in Silesia and he was going to want to keep Russia alive. So this was really our last chance to actually get Warsaw. I missed that completely.
Mehmet?
I followed Seren's lead.
Got it.
I really don't have much else to say. Like I said, any clever moves are all her idea.
It's a tough moment, actually, and this is one where if you have a weaker Germany in place, you probably get away with it. But because like you said, there's a solid Germany in here who's looking ahead, and also, I mean, you can't discount the fact that you've got Andrew Goff here, right? Who's also seeing ahead and laying the groundwork for the alliance that he needs in order to stick around. Yeah, I mean, this is amazing, right? Munich to Silesia. It immediately makes him a player in this theater, and it gives Andrew Goff a much needed lifeline. So, but on the other hand, right, Seren, if he goes to Warsaw, then there's a 50-50 chance that he gets Romania and Warsaw, and you get nothing, right? That's something that would be a back seat that you would have to be willing to take at that point. Well, what happened in the south here? Why didn't you guys cooperate on displacing Ionian?
Well, sorry, go ahead.
It was just a mistake. It was a straight up mistake. Like in decision, we should have hit Venice and hit Ion with everything. Like I think at that point, we were just indecisive, and I
know.
don't know what we were thinking. It was terrible.
I mean, you might have been just overly focused on this, right? Which is completely understandable because it's Andrew Goff, right? And you guys are taking this big swing at the king. But this is one of the things about face-to-face, right? Like you have to make quick decisions, and you have to do your best with the time allotted. At this point, though, you guys do so. At this point, you do look further east here or west here. So, and I think you go after, right? You go after Venice, but there is this, right? This is what we call a pull through or a brace, where there's a 50-50 chance here. Did you realize this was a 50-50 shot, Mehmet, or
no?
Or did you think you had it?
I thought I had it. So the plan at this point was to start expanding westwards and perhaps take some of those Italian supply centers, but I did not see that coming whatsoever. And in fact, when their orders resolved, I had to sort of go back and look through and lean very close to the screen to try and figure out exactly what had happened.
Got it. Okay, what is happening between the two of you at this point in negotiations? Like you've gone now a whole year, you haven't made any progress except for advancing a fleet out of into the Ionian. Is in negotiations between the two of you, is there tension or does everything seem copacetic?
In my experience, it was very copacetic.
And Seren?
There was no tension, but this is the year that I should have stabbed. Like that was my second major mistake of the game, not stabbing this year.
What was the first?
The first was not taking Ionian in.
Okay. So okay, you should have stabbed here. What would you have done?
Sent Romania to Serbia. Oof. Taken Sevastopol. No, I can't do that because he just goes back in. Like either way, there was a stab somewhere. Like I had a set of moves that I was thinking about doing, and like it would at least have gotten me like a somewhat better position. But the most important thing here was that if I had stabbed here, like Robert told me, that was when they would have hit Italy and Russia. So it would have been diplomatically incredible for me to stab here, and like I basically destroyed my game by not doing it.
Were you were talking to Rob? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I had the stab inputted. Like, sorry, Mehmet. I had the stab inputted. Then I talked to Andrew Goff and I asked for his advice. Don't ask me why. He said that it would be great for him if I started fighting with Austria, and I sort of just accepted that explanation at face value. But he told me the exact opposite of like what was true. Like it would have been terrible for him if I'd stabbed Austria, because he wasn't living at our behest. He was living at the behest of the EG, and that was just something I did not realize at all. Like he was completely living at Germany's pleasure, and Germany wasn't going to kill him as long as AT were together. It was just like I was just missing things left and right. Like my inexperience really showed here.
That's interesting. Did it? I mean, does it feel good in retrospect as a learning experience, or are you just disappointed?
I am disappointed that I could have done better, and like so just to skip ahead a bit. Sorry, just cut me off if this is skipping ahead too much. Like my third major mistake of the game, like in the final year actually. When I could have fought.
Well, hold on. Before we get to the final year, we have to talk about fall of 1904.
Yeah. Oh yes, no, let's do that.
Okay, so you've made the decision to stab because I assume you could see that you weren't going to get anywhere otherwise.
Yeah. So it was. I knew it was going to be like a shitty stab either way, but like it was the only chance. It was the only option with like a slight bit of upside, in my eyes.
So. Got it. So were you aware of these retreat options, or did that catch you by surprise?
Completely by surprise. So the plan here was that the plan here was for RAT to allow Russia back into Sev so he could get a build in St. Pete and fight EG. So Sev, but the moves that were supposed to happen were Moscow supports Warsaw hold Ukraine to Sev, Armenia supports Ukraine to Sev. And with Vienna cutting Bohemia, Galicia should not have been dislodged there because Warsaw was not supposed to be supporting Galicia. Supporting Silesia into Galicia. So Galicia and Sev were both sent to be retreated here, but Sev moving to Moscow was really next level stuff. Mehmet, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, there's a lot I could say about that. So throughout the game, Andrew and I spent quite a bit of time talking. So once he realized that Seren and I were working together and that I wasn't really willing to turn my back on that alliance, him and I had actually really, really friendly conversations where he gave me general advice about the game because I think he could tell quite astutely that I was relatively inexperienced. And so we discussed quite often about, general tactics ideas, and it was all really, really useful, interesting stuff. And I'm extremely grateful to him. And so the three of us discussed this set of moves with the idea of bringing Andrew back into the game so that we could put up a bit of a better front against the Western powers, sorry. But right before we submitted orders, Andrew reached out to me and said, hey, could you, I think he said something like, this might be a bit unorthodox, but could you move Seb to Moscow? And I said, yeah, sure, why not? But could you explain why? Not because I doubted him. Yeah. I wanted to learn. I was thinking this would be a learning experience. I don't frankly remember exactly what it was that he said, but I suspect that what he said may not necessarily have lined up with exactly why he wanted me to do that move. I think he sort of mentioned it in a way that didn't explicitly make it clear to me that he was going to have an advantage in that particular way, or that I would be able to, gosh, I don't even remember the details exactly. But yeah, it was very well done. And I think a great example of good diplomatic play because he built up this great relationship with me throughout the game, even though we were at opposing sides.
Yeah, I didn't even get to support Seb to hold. Like, that's how bad it was.
I mean, it's a remarkable moment for Andrew Goff. It's the sort of small detail that lets you understand why it is that he is what it is that makes him one of the best players in the world, because he simply can see that there's a potential for Seren to double cross. And if you don't move Sev there, he doesn't get a build. You still, Mehmet, you still get to retreat to Romania. Yeah. But that build is useful for him. It makes him a player in the game. And especially with Tim Richardson going to Barents Sea here, which, as we noted on the broadcast, is an inefficient way to surprise Russia here. He certainly could have had St. Petersburg if he'd wanted to this turn and still protected north. But yeah, without that build, Andrew's game probably is, the rest of it is significantly different. But with that one little thing, he keeps himself relevant. So, so Mehmet, you realize you've gotten stabbed, and you're disappointed that you have to retreat, and you've got 4 retreats. So 4 of your 5 units have to have retreats. Obviously, only 3 of them can. But actually, that's not true. You could have retreated to Ukraine and still covered Romania here. Just tell us about that moment when you realized that you still had these options.
It was a very pleasant surprise, I've got to admit. I mean, I knew that a stab was coming simply because our momentum had slowed down and it seemed like the natural thing for Turkey to do. So there wasn't really any kind of hard feelings or animosity there. I was just simply very pleasantly surprised that those retreat options were in front of me, and so I did my best to take them on. It was actually amusing. There was a little bit of a bug in Backstabber to the point where I wasn't sure if one of those crucial retreat orders was going through. And so we had this moment where I said, you guys, I need to talk to one of the mods, but I can't tell you why. But, it was all very friendly, and we got it all resolved, and I was able to do those retreats. So it was a very pleasant surprise.
So you retreat into Romania, into Bulgaria, and then you guys have this messy situation. Seren, you have the really nice advantage of not having to worry about a fleet of any Russian or Austrian variety in black. So what happened at this point then? Did you guys get together and say, "Oh, we need to find a way to work together," or was it done?
Yeah, I think that I was, still very much open to continuing to negotiate, and I believe that's what ended up happening.
Yeah, if memory serves, you blow up the fleet, but you stay. Seren stays even. So Seren, you say that moving forward there was one more big mistake that you made. Tell us about it.
I should have tried to hold on to Serbia.
Oh, here?
Yes, because holding on to Serbia there, Serbia gave 1 point to Mehmet. It would have given me 500 points. And that 500 points would have been enough to get me in the tournament 4 places above Robert, who was doing the most through my game this round, rather than 1 place below him. I ended at 1 place below him in the tournament. So is my great regret that I didn't try to get Bulgaria without losing Serbia. Because
can you see the tactics that you should have done then?
well, all I had to do was hold in Serbia and send one of Greece or Aegean to Bulgaria.
Well, I mean, you had to. Well, no, you would have had to tap Serbia, tap Romania from Serbia as well. Or you could have just done the support, but the tap would have been wiser given that he had these two armies here. But then you also had to worry about Greece, right, being hit from one of these. But that's okay. So then the game ends shortly after this, right? And this is how it ends.
Yep.
Oh, I see. So that's how you're calculating, because the game would have ended no matter what, and you would have ended.
It would have ended no matter what. Yeah, everyone was ready to end by then.
Okay. So let's draw some final lessons here. You guys, you took on the big gorilla, and the big gorilla ended up getting the last punch. Do you feel like that was the right thing to do, Sarah?
I mean, judging by results or by like, I don't know, like it was a very, very strong 0-1 and spring 0-2 for me. And I really have to say that if France hadn't collapsed faster than any France I've ever seen has collapsed, like I think we would have broken through to Italy and made some progress. I think not seeing the strategic ramifications, just being like several turns slower than just about every other player in this game, like damaged my game so much. And there's an argument to be made that if I had worked with Goff from the beginning, then he would have seen those things. So like I wouldn't have had to see them myself. And like, so I would have made more progress. But at the same time, I feel like that's just asking me to like get screwed over finally. So I don't know.
Yeah, then maybe he just tops the board, right? At that point.
Yeah.
Mehmet, what any regrets from you?
Absolutely not. Personally, for me, this was a huge success. I went into this tournament wanting to meet people, wanting to learn from experienced players, and that's really all I really wanted to do. So my goal was to try and survive for as long as possible, not for points, but just to be able to be part of those negotiations, to be able to see what everybody else was doing and hear their reasoning and logic. And so to be able to survive at the end until the end of both boards, you know, what more can I ask for? And in the end, I had an absolute whale of a time. And I can't wait to do this again. I don't really care where in the boards I end up, as long as I'm there and having a good time.
You guys, thank you both so much for joining me today on this wrap-up show. And thanks for playing. And thanks for providing such entertainment for us.
Thank you so much.
All right. And thank all of you for watching. Before I leave, I want to show everybody some coming attractions that we have here on the Diplomacy Broadcast Network. Coming next week or the week after in the month of August, we have our next episode of Deadline News. This will be our second one, and that is our monthly news program anchored by David Hood. On the Saturday, the 15th, we'll have the Virtual Diplomacy Leagues Club games for the month of August. If you want to learn more about that, there'll be a link below in the description field. And then at the end of August, we'll start Weasel Moot, which, unlike some of the other tournaments we've been covering, is going to take place over 2 weekends. There'll be round one the weekend of August 25th. And then the following Saturday, there'll be a second round. And then on the Sunday after that, we'll have a top board. And we'll see how that goes. And links below to be able to sign up for that tournament can be found in the description field. Lastly, please subscribe to us on YouTube if you haven't already, and visit us on diplobn.com. And have a great night.